there's no technical solution to poverty, especially poverty that's resulted in relationship breakdown, in drug abuse, or somebody's been abused, they've been hurt, they're home. The relationship, it's human relationships of people getting together. And this is where work and business plays an amazing role, because people need jobs, they need opportunity, they need mentorship. And so I think, we can often just kind of reduce work to the everyday utilitarian. And there's an aspect of that, of course. But as we know, in the tradition, the Catholic tradition, work is part of commutative justice, right? Which is a complex way of saying the justice of exchange.
Friends, welcome again to Prosper. I'm your host, Andreas Widmer, coming to you from the Entrepreneurship Center at the Catholic University of America's Bush School of Business. And this is Prosper, 30 minutes of wisdom you need to flourish in business.
And I'm Rebecca Teddy, co-sponsor or co-host of Prosper, and I'm just delighted to welcome Michael Matheson Miller to the show. Michael and Andreas go way back, and you're going to hear that in a minute. But first, let me do the formal bona fides. So Michael Matheson Miller is Chief of Strategic Initiatives and Senior Research Fellow at the Acton Institute. He's the Director of the Center for Social Flourishing and the Poverty Cure Initiative, and the Director and Producer of the award-winning documentary film Poverty, Inc., and he's also host of the Moral Imagination podcast. He has lived and traveled all over the world, Europe, Asia, Africa, Latin America, and he has lectured widely all over the place on philosophy, on entrepreneurship and business and ethics, among many other topics. And so we're delighted to have him here.
I'm going to get the ball rolling with some questions. Today I have two questions. Michael, welcome. I have two questions. The first one is, I hear there were some really amazing people in Poverty, Inc. And, and how was it to work with these famous people? You must have been starstruck.
I mean, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I mean, there were so many amazing people that you were almost nervous to work with. And then there was this one guy who was just so regular and simple. Oh, that was you. So that kind of just made it easy, because you were always kind of like, wow, people were really smart and everybody was smarter than you. And then like I interviewed you and I actually felt better about myself. So it was awesome. So thank you, because it really helped me. You were a confidence booster to me.
That's good. And I was a good travel companion, was I not?
Indeed. Of course, that's all false, because you were such an important part of Poverty, Inc. You were so great. And I've learned so much from you over the years. And
it's a fond time. That was a long time ago. A fond time traveling with you. Yeah, traveling with you around Africa. It was a lot of fun. But the serious question, Michael, and I'm almost afraid to ask you because this is going to take you a half an hour to answer, is what's the best thing you're reading right now? Is there a book you're totally into it right now?
Oh, interesting. What's the best book I'm reading right now?
Or one recently?
Yeah, I'm reading a couple of books that I think are really good in different areas. So I've been reading Bishop Eric Varden's book on chastity and the shattering of loneliness, which is very beautiful. I think that his book on chastity, which I'm reading again, I read most of it and then gave it away. It was so good, I had to get another copy. It's really good. It deals with complexity, but also deals with embodiment, the goodness of being. And I think, you and I've talked about this a lot, that I think one of the big problems that people are struggling today, they feel that they're commodified. People feel like they're objects of use. And then a lot of the kind of ideas or visions of the human person disregard the body. I think artificial intelligence is having an exacerbating effect on this. And so the affirmation that creation is good, that we're made in the image of God, of a loving Father, and that our bodies are not an accident, and that's deep. I would say that's been something good. I started reading Harvey Mansfield's book on political philosophy, which is just interesting. Starting with Machiavelli. So, and then I just finished Quo Vadis, which I'd never read.
Wow.
It's so great, and it struck me.
Totally.
So many things about the book struck me, and two things that really
people get this too low at the movie.
I've never seen the movie.
Yeah, because then it's of course the movie version, and people don't. It's much deeper than that.
It's super deep. So yeah, two things that struck me that really. One is, we can sometimes romanticize the pagan world. We read about the Greeks and the Romans and everything. And this book does not do that.
It certainly does not.
It does not. And it shows you the radical difference between Christian civilization and pagan civilization, which goes back to that Bishop Varden point. And Benedict the 16th and John Paul II make this point. Like, it's the radical difference of the Jewish and Christian traditions that being is good, creation is good, matter is good, that you matter. And it's very beautiful. And then the second thing that really striking to me, it's also convicting, but also inspiring, is how people were attracted to Christianity. This is a novel, but I think it reflects people were attracted to Christianity because of love of God, love of neighbor, and care for the poor. And, I think we oftentimes get worked up about the church did this or the bishop did that, or, as my good friend Matt Leonard says, we can get ourselves all worked up because some dude in his garage with a YouTube channel started talking about the church, and we're next thing you know, like, our passions are upset, or we think, that we are right about this, or we're right about liturgy, or right about that, or right about the other thing. And in Quo Vadis, it's just striking. It's like, what draws people to Christ is love of God, love of neighbor, care for the poor.
And it's still the same thing.
Super powerful.
It's still the same. What attracts people to Christ? My brother did several different tours during the War on Terror in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I don't want to get into the politics of that, but the untold story of that, sub rosa, is the steady stream of conversions to Christianity from translators and nurses, just because of something. And it's not like our fighting men and women are even, piously religious, but they have the name of Christian, and that just the power of something as simple as triage. And you don't get treated, by an American or by an allied hospital because you're the good guy versus the enemy, but by how serious is your need. That in and of itself, so powerful. And people are really, really interested in, what is this Christianity about? Who is this Jesus that you guys follow?
This is your backyard, and you're a philosopher, an ethicist in a sense. You have a huge experience. You taught philosophy, like in Latin America and at Ave Maria, and you have more degrees than I can count. But
less hair.
Yeah, but less hair. Yeah. So I have something going for me. But Michael, what's really surprising, and I'm a huge fan of you as a director, and we worked together several times. There is a beauty about the work you're doing. I believe with you and Simon, that's your partner in your company to do these documentaries and movies. I can watch a clip and I know it's you guys. I can see a style, and there's a beauty to what you do. Why do you have an artist's bent? Like, this is, it's one thing to have the understanding that you just did about theology and philosophy, but where is this from? Like, there's a true sense of artistic beauty.
Oh, thank you. You're very kind. Well, first, you mentioned Simon Sianka. He's incredible director of photography and editor, and I couldn't do what I do without Simon. So that's the first. Second, I think there's probably like some luck to it or something, and then a natural gift, maybe. I think on a very technical thing, when you make a film, as you know, you have to see the rough cut, and some people can't see rough cuts. They can't imagine what could be there. And for some reason, I hadn't studied film, but I worked with some really great people, Jim Fitzgerald at Coldwater Media, Jay Richards, who's now at the Heritage Foundation. I had people who taught me things. And so then I would read different people and read books and watch what they would do. And I was just able to see rough cuts. So I'm like, oh, we should put that there. Or what if we did this, and then bring the things together? So that was, I just had a lot of people who helped me and then studied things. And then I would say maybe, though, this is the influence of the philosophy that I try to do. And they think this is why Quo Vadis is so convicting, because I know I don't do it well enough. But is that, John Paul II always said that, the human person is not an object to be manipulated, but a subject to be respected. And that each human being, like Lewis says, is an immortal horror or everlasting splendor. And so I think both Simon and I really try to put the person at the center of what we're doing. And I think that impacts how we tell the story, how we shoot. I mean, Simon is Orthodox, so he's influenced by iconography. There's a lot of things going on that are taking place there. And then it's just, and I have I work with really amazing people. So it's definitely not me alone for sure. But yeah, I think I'm grateful for your kind words. I'm glad that you see that. I think that's been our goal is to highlight the unique dignity of each human person who are not objects. And that's the goal of our film.
I never did this publicly, Michael, but because of there's no opportunity for that. But so we worked together at Poverty Inc. This is actually how we met, because Seven Fund was a seed funder, and then we became friends and worked for many years together on different things. But then when I needed something done and I wanted to do the Gospel of Work, I of course brought you in. And today I'm very proud. I'm forwarding the Gospel of Work to somebody. And I'm very proud to do that, because I think you have the understanding of beauty, meaning the visual and the story arc and the depth of it. I owe you a great amount of gratitude.
Say a little bit, if you would, both of you gentlemen, about what the Gospel of Work is. People might have seen it on Formed and even on our own website. But just yesterday, I was in the office and somebody came in and said, I'm interested in you all because of the Gospel of Work. And that's so beautiful.
I want to start with that because it's interesting that I'll tell you where we started. And then Michael says, so Michael was the director of this. I was the initiator of it. I got a grant from Templeton where I approached him and said, listen, actually, I got the idea from Jeff Sandifer, of all people. Like he's a great thinker and always a huge supporter. And he basically said, look, if I had a topic like you about having been a Swiss Guard and everything, and I wanted to bring that message in an evangelizing way to the world, I would definitely do it by video, not by writing. So I was looking for a grant for this. And so the initial idea was to bring the Pope and the CEO on the theme of the Pope and the CEO into video, and then and make a series out of it. And we planned that, unfortunately, right before COVID. I'll let you take it from there, Michael.
Well, that's my heartbreak at this point. Like we were going to do this, and we had tickets to Rome. I called the driver who was picking us up. I said, I got to cancel. And, the COVID, it was March 15th. I think we were supposed to leave March 15th, 2020 to be in Italy to shoot a lot of this stuff. So that's one of the things with the Gospel of Work that, Simon and you and I had really had this, and Luke Burgess, we had this vision. We're going to really bring apart the Roman aspect in your story. And of course we weren't able to get that part of it. But, I think that we were able to get some of the core ideas that you wanted to get across and about the dignity of work and really this exposition of John Paul. Maybe someday we'll be able to do an actual video on Andreas.
But it was a beautiful thing. And it talked about that very thing about being Christian and how Christians differ from the rest of the world, or ought to differ from the rest of the world. Remember that quote you put in?
Yeah. The letter to Diogenes. Yeah. That's a great.
I hear a lot of reactions.
And the prayer of St. Ephraim. Yeah, I put that in there too, I think.
But say more, because you guys are speaking in code to anybody who hasn't seen the series.
Well, yeah, so you should watch the series. No.
Which we will link, but we'll be good. But
no, that was good. I learned so much. I remember I was struck by it. Even making that, you learn so many things. This is what, with Poverty Inc., I learned so many things from so many people making Poverty Inc. So, people like Magat Wade, who are in the film, just people that I interviewed, and they say something and it kind of opens your mind to a new way. And as you know, we're finishing just a new film. We're doing pre-screenings this month and called Poverty Trap, which is actually about the poverty in the United States. It's how big plans to solve poverty broke the American dream. And so I was able to go. We've traveled a lot of places in the United States, a lot of over 130, 140 interviews. And you just constantly learn. This is the joy of doing film. And same with doing that with you and Luke and all of your team. But yes, I think the letter to Diogenes, it's just like Christians are like 11 in the world. And this prayer of St. Ephraim, which is so beautiful, I think helps you. It's a prayer for Lent, which is coming up, but Ephraim the Syriac, I think he's 3rd or 4th century. I don't have it in front of me, but close to this. Lord and Master of my life, take away from me the spirit of sloth,
despondency,
or faint-heartedness. Sometimes it's right. And
love of money and idle talk.
yeah, well, it's also sometimes called vain ambition or lust of power and idle talk. Instead, give chastity, humility, patience, and love to thy servant. And let me be aware of my sins and not the sins of my brethren, for thou art holding to the ages of ages. And I'll tell you a great book, actually. I'm sorry I didn't say it's the beginning. It's a great book that actually Simon gave to me last year. And I read it for Advent, which is funny because the name of the book is Great Lent. The Great Lent. And this is coming out with Lent by Alexander Schmemann. He's he was an Orthodox priest. He's passed away. And he has a chapter that analyzes this. I'm actually going to take this and write it up, some of like his analysis, but he actually walks through, if I can go quickly, sloth, and I'm this is unnuanced, but sloth is like acedia. It's a spiritual thought. You just can't do the great things. You're stuck at the great things. And then this leads you to faint-heartedness. And this is where the lie of the devil comes in. You can't do that. You can't accomplish it. It's too great for you. Yeah. And this leads to despondency, which then counterintuitively leads you to vain ambition. So instead of going for like to actually be holy, I'm going to build $1 million company. I'm going to be a pop star, $1 billion company, I should say. I'm gonna, or just live this like life of pleasure seeking and dissipation, because you know what? It's vain ambition. And it also leads to idle talk. And that idle talk is just like detraction, or what the St. Paul talks about, like lashon hara in Hebrew, evil talk, gossip, and all these things. And also just vain, wasted times. But and then if you think about it, it goes back the other way. Think about every time we have a conversation where there's gossip or just vanity. We're talking about something stupid. Oh, did you see the news about such and so did such and such, or this or whatever, whether it's the news or a colleague or whatever. And then next thing you know, we're thinking of our own vain ambitions. And then we become faint-hearted to do the hard things, and we're despondent, and then we're in sloth. And so it's this kind of recursive thing back and forth. And it's very beautiful because the opposite of that is chastity, which is whole-mindedness, not purity, but also whole-mindedness. And then patience, humility, and love. And that overcomes it. And I think that's actually was part of what we incorporated that, because in a sense, this is the challenge of the businessman. This is the businesswoman. This is what, like, sometimes I can't do the actual things I'm supposed to do. I mean, I know I struggle with this every day. The things I'm supposed to do, how many times did, like, the end of the day, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I wasted my time with vain ambition, idle talk, looking at Twitter, whatever it might be.
That's St. Paul, right?
Yeah. And so, Twitter and Google delenda est.
Good. Hey, hold that thought. I'm just going to take a little break and move us into our next segment after the break. But we're going to come back to in just a second to our conversation with Michael Matheson Miller. I have to do my due diligence and invite you to help us out by liking and subscribing us on your favorite podcast app, and maybe, hey, share it, tell your friends about it. And we'd also love to invite you to the campus of Catholic University on April 17th, 2026, so this year, for our spring meeting of the Family Business Consortium. There will be an online version as well, but the really fun part is if you come to see our beautiful campus and spend time with fellow family business professionals, many of whom might be further along in their family business than you are, and will have real stories of problems that arose and how they solved them. It's just a great time, and we'd love to have you there. And you can go to familybusinessconsortium.org, or just look at the link in our show notes, and you'll be able to register for that. And then if you'd like to know more about the work of the Entrepreneurship Center here at the Bush School of Business, look for that link in our show notes as well. We love your feedback and support.
Welcome back, everybody. You're with Prosper, where we've been enjoying our talk with business strategist, filmmaker, and overall great thinker, Michael Matheson Miller.
I need to come on your podcast more often. You make me feel you're so kind to me.
Yeah, I'm putting on this is my stadium introduction voice. So Usually I charge for this, Michael.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, maybe you could just I could get that and just walk around with that introduction all the
Well,
time.
he just means I think Michael means in contrast to the way you guys talk to each other offline, where you do nothing but insult each other.
No, that's not true. We actually are not that mean to each other. We generally affirm one another, but I think I'm going to record that and just walk around the house and play it around my child.
For your kids, so your kids know.
Just so this is out once and for all, like he made me do trial recordings, him and Simon, and then they cut them together and made silly videos of me and sent them to me as they were working on the cutting table, right?
Oh, that's the great fun. When I used to work in radio, I used to work for Voice of America, and we used to have a lot of fun doing that kind of thing. But Michael, this, as we've already alluded to this, but this season on Prosper, we've really been exploring what we're calling enterprise solutions to poverty. And you mentioned Magat Wade, and it is going to be the next couple episodes. We're going to have an interview with her as well. And so it's a little bit like getting the band back together, except I wasn't part of that band. But tell us about the new project, right? So because it's, in a way, the way I have it in my mind, the story I'm telling myself is that this is Poverty Inc., but for the American inner city. I don't know if that's fair, but tell us whether it is or not.
It's close. I mean, in one sense, that's close, but not just the inner city, because there's a lot of rural poverty, and small towns, and so it's not just an inner city film. It's really about poverty in America in many ways, and in one sense, it's Poverty Inc. in for America. But I think it's a different angle, because on poverty in America, I mean, I think there's some similar things. There is a kind of large scale technocratic expert-led approaches to solve poverty that are distant. And I think that's sense, but I think it's a bit like the problem in America is like, here's how I would summarize it very quickly, and obviously without nuance. But so in the developing world, the fundamental problem is not that people lack stuff. They're not poor because they don't have stuff, right? As you say in the film, Andreas, well, like $1 or $2 a day is a terrible way to state the problem, right? The way that the reason they're poor is because they're excluded from institutions of justice, private property, rule of law, freedom of association, ability to participate in the formal economy, start a business. All these things are they're excluded from. In the United States, I think that happens to a point, but in a large scale, that's not the main reason why people are poor in the United States. The main reason, I think, is a breakdown of community, a breakdown of social capital, a breakdown of the family, of course. There's very strong data on the correlation between poverty and family. And just a breakdown of, as I said, of the social capital that enables you to get access to those things that do exist broadly and generally in the United States. Now, obviously, not everybody has equal access, et cetera. So our film really it's called Poverty Trap. And it's about how big plans to solve poverty ended up harming the natural communities where people flourish, and then kind of, in a sense, getting people stuck. Now, I do think that it's important to say, I don't think it was intentional, right? In that, let's go out and, create terrible situation for the poor. But I do think that basically you had this very technocratic idea. This was the dominant view of the time. And this is where the parallel between developing world and, say, America come together. So we've won World War II. We've beat the bad guys. We have used incredible feats of scientific and social engineering, movement of people to solve this problem. We come back with confidence. We've won the war. Let's win the peace. Right. And this language I think it's Clement Attlee actually uses that language in the UK. We're going to win the peace. And then we're like very enthusiastic. America's at the top of the world, and we're going to build things, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to solve problems. And you have this idea, we're going to clear slums, and we're going to do the war on poverty during the Johnson administration. And we can set up all these things and continue on the things that happened in the 30s during the Roosevelt, and we're going to just transform society. And so you have this plan, but what ends up happening is that, so for example, one of the themes of our film that we talk about is what's called urban renewal. And some of your listeners may know that, but like in cities all across the United States, with federal funding, local governments got money, and they said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to bulldoze the slums. So like an example that we tell in our film is a place called Black Bottom in Detroit, Michigan, which it's called Black Bottom because of the alluvial soil. But it was a generally African American community, and not only that, and it was quite poor. And they cleared it out. They put freeways through it, Black Bottom and Paradise Valley, and in that place there were hundreds. I think there were 300 businesses. There were hundreds of private homes, churches, sodalities, private charities, and they were bulldozed and cleared away, right, to like make the place better, build freeways, and then they built public housing in a lot of places, right? So of course in Detroit, but in Los Angeles and in Chicago with Cabrini Green, or St. Louis with the very famous Pruitt-Igoe, they built these huge projects. But what happened is they destroyed both the community and the intergenerational wealth. So one of the stories we tell is of Aurora Vargas in Los Angeles. She lived in a Mexican American neighborhood, and they decided for public housing they were going to use eminent domain, clear the neighborhood, and they were going to build public housing there. It didn't work, and they ended up building Dodger Stadium on top of it. But this house, this was a vibrant Mexican American community. And think about it. If she owned the property today, it would be worth like $1.5 million. If the people who own these properties in these areas had been able to develop, they would be worth more. So the intergenerational wealth was lost. The communities were broken up. And then people were put in public housing. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And in public housing, they started doing social engineering and social experiments. So it changed. But in the beginning, you couldn't have a man in the house, or you would lose your housing. And so they created incentives that actually broke apart the family. I don't think that most of the people who were behind this were like, let's break apart the family. I don't think they thought that. But because there was this sense of like technocratic element, they didn't pay attention to the complexity of human relationships. It was a very kind of technocratic, technical, mechanistic way of seeing society. And then we see, for example, that it led to family breakdown. In the United States, about 40% of babies now are born out of wedlock. In the African American community, it's I think 69%. African Americans had higher marriage rates, or equal to higher marriage rates, than white Americans before the 60s. And part of that's because of the incentives. We talk about welfare. We talk about the problems that happen with benefits cliffs. If you save money, you get punished, et cetera. But we also talk about, and you can watch the film because it's coming out soon. We also talk about amazing things that are going on in this country. Homeless, how to think about homelessness, some incredible stories that are taking place all over the world. That we were in South Dallas in a place called Bonton, which is doing amazing things with a guy called Darren Babcock and Darius Lee and a whole group of other people. We were in Gallup, New Mexico, where there's an amazing charter school that's 50% Native American population. And they grew from 100 students to 800 students in 7 years. It's just a tremendous place where there's so many good things going on all over this country. We filmed in Jackson, Mississippi, and Colorado, and Michigan, and New Mexico, all over the country. And so what we tried to do in this film is kind of talk about the technocracy and how it hurt things, but also show how what people need is building relationships, strengthening the family, giving them work opportunities, enterprise solutions to poverty, as you talk about, building civil society. And it's just amazing the amount of amazing people in this country who are doing tremendous things, from Portsmouth, Ohio, and Hazard, Kentucky, to Gallup, New Mexico, and Patterson, New Jersey. So it's great.
What are some of what I love is in your storytelling approach with these movies, and I haven't seen I just hear you as a friend talk about the filming and stuff. But with Poverty Inc., you showed beautiful examples in the movie, whether it's Eva with her t-shirts, or the guys with the street lamps, in Haiti, or rather. And so, what are some? I always like to look at the glass half full and show some of the solutions to create imitators for that. And so our audience here is to a large extent young entrepreneurs, or people earlier in their career, because we're affiliated with the university. And one of the things we encourage our students to do is to say, start your businesses by doing well by doing good, meaning work for the common good, but create for-profit companies and start to do things. Give us some ideas of what you've seen that inspired you.
Oh, so there's so many things. Just off the top of my head. So I mentioned South Dallas. There's a place called Bonton Farms, and we tell the story. So I'm not going to give the whole story in the film, but one of the things, there just weren't enough jobs. There weren't opportunities. There was health problems. So there was all these obstacles. And I think one way to think about it, sometimes my colleagues and I talk about, there are headwinds coming at everybody. Everybody has headwinds. We all have difficulties. Everybody's struggling with inflation right now. Everybody's struggling with something, right? And there's headwinds coming at us. And, technology and et cetera. So, and then people who are in low income and poor, who are coming from maybe very difficult places where there's broken families and violence and everything, there's extra headwinds coming at them. And so one of the things, like, for example, that Bonton Farms did with Darren Babcock is they said, okay, well, let's walk through some of these problems. Okay, if there's a food desert, what do we need to do? Well, let's start a farmer's market. Let's start a farm. Let's work with a local supermarket. They're working with Kroger to create a thing called Grocery Connect, so that people who are in places where they don't have access to good, healthy food can get healthy food. And this, of course, healthy breakdown in health makes it hard to work. And so all these things kind of connect together. As Darren always talks about, there's a flywheel. There's a lady we interviewed in Detroit, Kate Milligan is her name. She started a thing called One Girl Revolution. You should have Kate on your podcast, by the way.
Oh, good idea.
She's great. Yeah, I can introduce you. Kate's great. And so she's going through Detroit and finding, and she's focused on ladies in this case, like entrepreneurs. One lady who's like, has an idea, starts something, gets a business, maybe solves a social problem. And so, I think there's what's it called? I'm having a mind blank of the name of the place. It's very close. It's a Detroit. It's like a jewelry shop. They began to, I'm almost close to the name. I'm going to get it. I feel bad. But they began to like use kind of some of the broken, like graffiti and other places and other elements. And they started making this kind of cool jewelry, and it became a business. Right. And so like Kate features a lot of those people at One Girl Revolution. As I said, there's schools, there's educational issues, there's business issues, there's people working with homeless. I mean, one of the things that's really striking to me is the importance of work. And this goes right directly to the Prosper podcast. So a couple of the places where I visited, but especially one called Watered Gardens in Joplin, Missouri. So they realized that they were giving away things, and it was ended up like keeping people continued in homelessness. And here's one of, I think, the deepest things I learned from doing this is, what do we mean by dependency? And oftentimes if you talk about dependency, they're just stuck in welfare. But if you invert, as Charlie Munger says, if you rethink it, dependency is the condition where a person believes they have no value to offer anybody. And when we give somebody something, we almost are saying like, you're right. And so what's been very interesting is watching people say, okay, you can have a bed for the night, you can have food, you can go to choose your food, but you got to go work for a couple of hours first, right? And give what you can. Now, if you're starving, they don't make you work, okay? If you're like dying on the street, it's like, but if you have capacity to work, you have to work. Another place, there's a farming. They're like, okay, you can stay in these homeless pallet shelters, but you got to make sure you're watering the plants and feeding the animals. Okay, now you don't water the plants on a Wednesday. And the guy there says, you didn't water the plants. And they're like, what? I didn't water the plants. He's like, the plants are going to die if you don't water the plants. And sometimes in the first time in years, they think, wait, I matter? Absolutely, you matter. And so the connection between work and mattering, and then going back to that early part of the question, the dignity of the person, Jack Briggs, who was he's a retired Air Force general, but he was the director of a homeless shelter in Colorado Springs. And, he says, like, sometimes people say, what do I do? These are little things. He said, the reality is you can't change someone's life in one encounter. He's like, so what I do, if I meet a homeless person, Jack says, I talk to them, I say, what's your name? And sometimes they'll tell you like, cowboy or some, street name. And he says, no, not your street name. What's your name? I'm Michael. I'm Andreas. I'm Rebecca. And I'll say, oh, Tom or Susie. And Jax is like, very nice to meet you, Tom. I hope you have a safe day. Now, don't say have a great day. You know, he's like, they're homeless. Okay. They're struggling. He said, this is very striking to me. Sometimes it's the first time a person's heard their actual name that their mother named them in a year or 2 years or 3 years. And so this dignity of the person, the dignity of work. And I think this goes to the kind of the core aspect of the film, which relates to your question. It's a long answer. There's no technical, like Benedict XVI is great on this. There's no technical solution to the problems of evil, sin, suffering, and death. There's no technical solution to poverty, especially poverty that's resulted in relationship breakdown, in drug abuse, or somebody's been abused, they've been hurt, they're home. The relationship, it's human relationships of people getting together. And this is where work and business plays an amazing role, because people need jobs, they need opportunity, they need mentorship. And so I think, we can often just kind of reduce work to the everyday utilitarian. And there's an aspect of that, of course. But as we know, in the tradition, the Catholic tradition, work is part of commutative justice, right? Which is a complex way of saying the justice of exchange. And that means that fundamentally every act of work and every act of exchange is in the realm of justice. And so if we do it well, we can help create just situations that help people to flourish. And so, I mean, yeah, there's just amazing people out there. There's one more quick story. There's a guy, fast one. He was a Army veteran, came back to Portsmouth, Ohio. His name's Dale King. And it was ground zero for the opioid problem. I mean, it was targeted by people. It was a disaster. You can read about it in Sam Quinones' book, Dreamland. But Dale got back and he was kind of mad. And what's going on around these drug people? And there's all these pain clinics. And he began to realize, oh, these people are suffering. He ended up, shortening the story, starting a kettlebell workout and then a gym. He started a gym and he started doing rehab in the gym. And he built a business there. It was a business, okay? And then a buddy of his started a hamburger and pint shop right nearby because it was downtown. The downtown was failing. This was one of these, industrial towns. And then it was during COVID. Rogue Fitness they were running out of kettlebells. So he made a deal with a local foundry to get the kettlebells, but they couldn't package. So he started another business with people coming out of rehab, working in the business. And his vision was, we're not going to run away from pain through painkillers. We're going to seek pain through working out. And then we're going to be able to overcome things. And then we're going to build businesses around it and rejuvenate the economy. And there's so many things. Hazard, Kentucky, same thing, like amazing. So yes, tell your students and your listeners, I mean, business, a business well done is a social venture.
It's so inspiring even to hear those stories, because there's so many different kinds of ideas in so many different realms, and you just start. You don't know what's going to catch, but one thing that catches inspires the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
Yeah, like Dale King, it's kettlebells. I mean, he didn't just start his own business; he spawned other businesses from kettlebells, right? And it's great stuff.
I never thought I would have to be the one to say that we're pushing the envelope in terms of time. Now I know how it is when I talk to somebody on a podcast. I just won't land, okay? Because we keep pushing the envelope of how long we can make an episode. So we'll land the plane here, Michael. But thank you so much for joining us, and we certainly need to have you back.
We absolutely do, and we'll follow up on the One Girl Revolution. But tell people the film's coming out, right? Tell us where we're going to be able to find it.
So the film is called Poverty Trap, and I mean, when I say it's coming out, the website I think comes out today. At least the first, it's povertytrapfilm.org. I work, of course, at the Acton Institute, as you mentioned, and so you can find some information there. You can also we have a Poverty Inc. and has an Instagram, Poverty, where we put things there. And then you can follow me at The Moral Imagination, which is my podcast, but I'll also put out some information there. And the Acton Institute and Poverty Trap Film.
Wonderful. So thank you all again. Thank you, Michael, again for being here. And thank you, listeners, for spending this quick 40 or so minutes with us. All that remains to be said is to take care. And until next time, in your spirit and in your business, we hope you prosper.